Would everyone take their seats, please? Thank you. Right. I'd like to welcome everyone to this extraordinary meeting of the Council. As this is an extraordinary Council meeting, I have agreed that we will not sing the National Anthem nor say prayers. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, please follow the officers to the muster point at the front of the building and do not use the lifts. As the Mayor, I am entrusted to maintain decorum of this meeting. I would therefore like to remind councillors that respect is to be shown to all members, officers and professional advisors in the chamber or online. When someone is speaking, I would ask that other members listen and do not hold their own private conversations. Any members who do not respect this will be reminded. You may see that from time to time I will speak into the officers on the dais who will be guiding me through any procedural points. We will be using a timer tonight to ensure that members are aware when they are nearing the 5 minutes cut-off time to any speech. If any member does reach the 5 minutes cut-off time, I will be asking them to stop their speech immediately. I trust that all members have read the reports and taken the opportunity to speak to officers with regards to any query that you might have had, both when the agenda was published for the Corporate Policy and Resources meeting held last week and this meeting. I will advise you that Mr. Henry Wild from Knight Frank has been invited to attend the meeting tonight, and along with Coralie Holman, Group Head of Assets, he will be able to answer any technical questions if necessary. Mr. Wild is unable to attend in person, but is attending via a Teams link. Given the significance of the decision this evening, a member of the Commissioner team will also be online this evening, but will not be participating in the discussion. These matters remain fully within the remit of this Council and the members in this room tonight. And I would also say to everyone that it is, again, a very hot evening. So if anyone's got their jacket on, like I had mine on, perhaps you'd like to remove it if you get too hot. And we'll carry on with the meeting now. Okay? So, points of order. I'll just hand over to the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members. Councillors are reminded that the point of order may only relate to an alleged breach of council standing orders or the law. Any councillors raising a point of order must indicate the standing order or the point of law and the way in which they consider it has been broken. Councillors are also reminded that they are only to speak once on a matter and once on an amendment. Committee services will be monitoring who has spoken to ensure that this procedure is followed. If it is apparent that significant inaccuracy of information has been shared during the discussion which is misleading members, in accordance with standing orders, any member may propose a motion for a short adjournment of the meeting. During the adjournment, the member querying the information being provided will advise which part of discussion they disagree with. The monitoring officer will decide whether this does need addressing. If this can be resolved at the meeting, it will be, but if further investigation is needed, members will be advised of the outcome as soon after the meeting as practicable. Any such adjournment should be proposed before a motion is put to final vote. The ruling of the Mayor on any part of this meeting is final. Thank you.
Thank you. So turning to the agenda. Apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Apologies have been received from Councillors Arnold, Barker, Opari, Brennan, Chandler, Clark and Garaci.
Agenda item 2, disclosures of interest. Aside from the standing declaration from those councillors that are also Surrey County councillors and West Surrey councillors, is there any other? No, thank you. Right, come to agenda item 3, disposal of the Summit Centre. This item is for Council to consider the disposal of the Summit Centre. This item was considered by the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee on the 29th of July, and it was resolved to make a recommendation to Council to approve the recommendations outlined in the report. I would remind members that all the information contained within the appendices is confidential, and if any member wishes to discuss specific details, we will need to exclude the public and the press for that part of the discussion. I will now call upon Councillor Neil to put forward a motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose that Council, 1, consider and agree in principle the offer and the proposed disposal, and 2, approve the proposed disposal on the terms set out in the report. 3, delegate authority to the Chief Finance Officer and Group Head of Assets in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee to agree minor variations to the heads of terms and adjustments to the sale price. And 4, delegate authority to the Group Head of Corporate Governance to enter into a transfer to complete the disposal and any ancillary legal documentation required in relation to the proposed disposal.
Is that seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Bateson, do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Neil, do you wish to speak in support of your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The disposal of this property was agreed by this council in 2025. Unfortunately, that transaction did not complete due to reasons detailed in the restricted part of the report. As a result, the amount of capital receipts required in 26-27 to meet our asset rationalisation target increased by the expected sale price of this property. I'm pleased to see the property has gone back to market and we have another good offer on the table. I cannot see as a reason for this council not to approve this disposal since it has done so once already. I ask that we vote in support of the motion and accept the offer made.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Neil. Do any other councillors wish to speak on this agenda item? No? Oh, yes, Councillor Buck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this motion proposed by the leader, I would say that is one of the most important decisions that this council is being asked to take today, whether we vote for or we vote against. But before we make that decision, I would like to ask whether we have done everything necessary to satisfy ourselves that this is the right decision that we are going to do. So let's be very clear. I'm not sure we have done everything necessary to satisfy ourselves that we are heading towards the right decision. First of all, the council has appointed Knight Frank as the agent, as the sole agent. The report shows the work from evaluation to marketing of this asset, from securing a purchaser, Knight Frank. This report in front of the chamber today is not about what Knight Frank has been doing. The report in front of us is we're being asked to approve a council recommendation. And our decision rests more on what the report proposed by Knight Frank, about the opinion of Knight Frank. We all know that Knight Frank advised on the disposal strategy, they valued the asset, they marketed the asset, they assessed the bids, and they recommended the preferred purchaser. My question is, where is the independent challenge? Who independently tested whether the advice before members tonight to dispose the council asset is the right one? We all know that this council has been criticized, not one time, many times, for poor governance. A good governance is about independent assurance, not simply some advice from one agent. The recommendation asks members to approve today's deal while allowing officers to adjust tomorrow's financial deal. So it also says minor adjustment, but the report doesn't define what minor means. The report, does minor means pennies, pounds, or millions. So this is something very important. At what point do a lower sales price become a materially different transaction that should come back to elected members? Madam Mayor, democratic accountability should not end at the moment we cast our vote tonight. If in the financial terms, this decision should come back to the chamber and not delegated to officers behind closed doors if there is any variation. So we cannot, as we put it very simply, sign a blank check and leave it with officers to decide on the sales. We need stronger scrutiny, we need clearer safeguard, we need elected members retaining control over a significant financial decision. I'm not arguing about reducing the debt. I'm arguing about the disposal of assets where that is demonstrably the right thing to do. I'm arguing about the decision involving tens of millions of pounds should be without being questioned. So as councillors, I think history will judge us, not on how quickly we decide to sell this public asset. It will decide on how we are judged, how we exercise proper control, proper stewardship on the asset that has been entrusted to us by the people who elected us. So tonight, I ask colleagues, one simple thing before you vote. Is the governance strong enough to conclude these sales? Is it not important to obtain an independent valuation and assurance that this process is happening, rather than relying on only one agent who is responsible for everything? Can we put our trust in that agent blindly without any other opinion or scrutiny? So even if the decision to sell this asset maybe is the right decision, the governance is not strong enough for a decision of this magnitude. So for those reasons, I cannot support this recommendation. Thank you. No, they pressed the button.
I think that made the point. Would you like to turn your microphone off, please, Mr. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this particular agenda item? Yes, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't intend to speak on this at all, I can assure you. But I would just like to respond to some of the points, because it's not allowable effectively for officers to so do. The procurement of Knight Frank to undertake this marketing for us was done via a government procurement framework, procured in the entirely approved manner. So that leaves Knight Frank as our agent, not any chance or any mistake. What Knight Frank have done in their marketing is put it out there, they've sought offers, and we are now accepting the best offer that has been made. There isn't a better one, this is the best. So I don't really see any argument that that's a bad reason. Thirdly, the price here is above the Red Book valuation, the RICS standard valuation of the property. We're doing better than Red Book. So I think in all three counts, we are doing what residents would expect. And I think it's important that we should approve this. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question about the recommendation, because...
I'm sorry, we're not allowed to ask questions.
Okay, I'll make a comment then. There seems to be an inconsistency here because in the disposal of commercial asset A, in the part 1, the first recommendation is to approve the disposal on the terms set out in the terms of the report, which is fine. But commercial asset, and that tallies with what we discussed at CPRC. And those are the same words used when we talked about the disposal of asset B. Yet tonight, in commercial asset B terms, we're asked to approve the disposal price set out in the terms in this report. And I've been monitoring this. It seems to have been changing and flim-flamming between when we were approving the disposal or disposal price. It should surely be consistent for both assets. So what are we being asked to approve? Is it just the price? And we're assuming that disposal is agreed, or are we agreeing disposal in total? Because that needs to be clear.
Okay, Linda Wood.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Williams, for your question. The specifics of the motion that is being under debate and being discussed at the moment has been read out by the leader when he introduced the motion. For avoidance of doubt, if you would like me to repeat, is number 1, consider and agree in principle the offer and the proposed disposal. Number 2, approve the proposed disposal on the terms set out in the report. Number 3, delegate authority to the Chief Finance Officer and Group Head of Assets in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee to agree minor variations of the heads of terms and adjustments to the sale price, and delegate authority to the Group Head Corporate Governance to enter into transfer to complete the disposal and any ancillary legal documentation required in relation to the proposed disposal.
So could you read out the first part again?
Consider and agree in principle the offer and the proposed disposal. Number 1. Number 2, approve the proposed disposal on the terms set out in the report.
That doesn't tally with what I'm looking at in ModGov. Read the report in ModGov. It says committee is asked to 1, approve the proposed disposal on the terms set out in this report. So we've come to a meeting and we don't even know what we've been asked to agree. And it changes for asset B.
Yes, would you like to say something?
Thank you very much. Well, you're raising a valid point on the basis that number 1 doesn't, in principle, well, on the basis that the substantive requirement is to approve the proposed disposal on the terms set out in this report, then proposal is to, number 1 falls away in any event, because if the 2 is approved, or if the principle is approved, then there's little merit in voting or considering the principle separately from the rest of the motion. What I'm trying to say here is that the number 1, as read out earlier, can be dispensed with without major or without any impact on the overall drive of the recommendation. Thank you.
And why would this differ from the disposal price referred to in commercial asset B?
Well, each report they follow their. Well, each report is drafted on the basis of the matter in hand, and doesn't necessarily mean that each and every recommendation is going to be mirror image of each other. Thank you.
So is there anybody else that would like to speak on this particular agenda item? Councillor Hopkins.
Good evening. Just a quick point. As Councillor Nichols said, that we are being offered above the Red Book value. I hope that this is something that will follow through with all the sale of properties, and that if it doesn't achieve Red Book value, we won't be turning round and selling them. That's all I want to say, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment on this particular agenda item?
Can we have a name vote, please?
Yes, we will be having a name vote. Right. Councillor Neil, would you like to sum up?
I've nothing to add, Madam Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, I'll read out the motion again. Does the council resolve to, number 1, consider and agree in principle?
You leave that one. You leave that one.
Right, okay.
Go to the next.
Number 2. Okay. Right, we'll get it right this time. So, does the council agree to approve the proposed disposal of the terms set out in the report? Delegate authority to the Chief Finance Officer and Group Head of Assets in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee to agree minor variations to the head of terms and adjustments to the sale price. And delegate authority to the Group Head of Corporate Governance to enter into a transfer to complete the disposal and any ancillary legal documentation required in relation to the proposed disposal. Now we're going to have a name vote, so I shall hand over to the interim chief executive.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as everybody knows, I'm going to read out the names of councillors in alphabetical order, and you'd say for, against, or abstain. Mayor Dunn.
4.
Deputy Mayor Gibson.
4.
Councillor Atwell.
4.
Councillor Bateson.
4.
Councillor Beattie.
4.
Councillor Beecher.
4.
Councillor Badai.
Against?
Councillor Bing Dong. Abstain, was that?
Abstain.
Councillor Botflower.
Against?
Councillor Buck.
Against?
Councillor Burrow.
4.
Councillor Button.
4.
Councillor Kaplan.
4.
Councillor John Duran.
4.
Councillor Susan Duran.
4.
Councillor Geach.
4.
Councillor Grant.
4.
Councillor Gaiawali.
4.
Councillor Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Islam.
Against?
Councillor Lee.
Against?
Councillor Matur.
Abstain.
Councillor Mooney. Councillor Neal.
4.
Councillor Nichols.
4.
Councillor Rutherford.
4.
Councillor Sally Galopoulos.
You'll get it right one day.
Yeah,
After you've
practice
left.
more.
Saliogopoulos, it's pronounced, but never mind. I'm against, actually.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councillor Sexton.
Oh. I said 4.
4. Okay. Councillor Turner.
4.
Councillor Vera Singhi.
4.
Councillor Williams.
Abstain.
And Councillor Woodward.
Against?
Thank you.
The result of the vote is as follows. 21 votes for, 8 votes against, and 3 votes abstained. So therefore, the motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. We now move on to agenda item 4, disposal of the Thames Tower. This item is for council to consider the disposal of Thames Tower. This item was considered by the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee on the 29th of July. and following a debate, it was resolved not to make a recommendation to Council to approve the disposal. As this was a recommendation from the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee, we still need to consider the report and officer's recommendation outlined. The intention is that as far as possible, we will seek to deal with the discussion and decision in public. However, it is likely that to enable officers and advisors to respond to the questions fully, we will need to move into a private session. Before I call upon Councillor Neil to put forward a motion, I am using my discretion as the chair of this meeting to allow officers and advisors to introduce this item and to then give all members the chance to put any further questions or queries in a public forum. To an officer team member made up of either Terry Collier, the Deputy Chief Executive, Paul Moore, the Director of Place, or Coralie Holman, the Group Head of Assets, and our professional advisor, Mr. Henry Wild from Knight Frank. But if necessary, we'll have to move into a closed session. I propose to take questions first that can be discussed in a public forum. And then if members have questions relating to exempt information, we will need to go into a closed session. I will now hand over to Paul Moore, Corporate Director of Place, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors. I've been asked to help frame the discussion this evening in the spirit of supporting all members in coming to a formal and final view on the potential disposal of Thames Tower, which, as you know, is a prominent commercial office block next to Reading Station. Following discussion at CPRP last Wednesday evening, members sought greater clarity on certain issues. I hope that all members will now have had the chance to read and digest the note circulated on Monday evening. That note contained a detailed annex from Knight Frank, fully addressing several key questions raised at CPRC. That note was colleagues' genuine attempt to unpack and to answer the questions ahead of tonight's discussion and to share those answers with all members of the Council. Following your steer, Madam Mayor, in this first stage of the discussion, members will be invited to raise any further questions or queries. Henry Wild from Knight Frank, Coralie Holman, Terry Collier and I will seek to respond as fully as we can to any points raised this evening. And we'll go as far as possible to deal with those points in public. If I might turn to highlight a few points of substance now, themes that run to the heart of why we're here this evening and why your decision is so important to the future of this borough and to Spelthorne residents. Three key questions were hanging in the air from CPRC last Wednesday. Why must we dispose of these assets? Why Thames Tower? And why now? And I'd like to take each of those in turn. So firstly, why are we disposing of our assets? As a council, you as members agreed a plan to manage down the debt burden. Last December, this chamber agreed the principle of programme of disposals in response to statutory directions. The agreed strategy was to reduce debt, resulting in overall MRP, so that's the minimum revenue provision, reductions of £16 million in 27-28 for West Surrey Council, to directly reduce its revenue budget gap in that year. There is therefore a direct relationship between our asset programme, tonight's decisions, and West Surrey Council's ability to fund future public services for the benefit of our residents. This report comes to the Council to help meet two related and essential aims: to reduce debt burden and the associated revenue gap, to protect future public services. So secondly, why this property? Thames Tower was marketed for disposal because it's a prominent, valuable and well-known asset. An asset that has been seen as an attractive and straightforward early sale. It represents a clear investment opportunity for a long-term institutional investor. Frankly, members, we've landed a good buyer, one that sees the asset's fair price today and has the vision and resources to generate further value linked to planned future investment. The sale of Thames Tower achieves over 40% of this year's target receipts. Other assets simply do not command the value required to deliver the agreed overall debt reduction by March next year. Put simply, if we do not progress this sale, we will not achieve the receipts target that this council has previously agreed. Thirdly then, why now? And allied to that, why not delay? Holding Thames Tower for a further year, or say 6 years, would cost local taxpayers several £1 million. Whether it's a year or 6 years, those costs are set out in page 47 and 51 of your agenda tonight, members, and they're also covered in section 3 on page 4 of the supplementary note. They are very important figures. These are the real net costs of holding Thames Tower for any significant period. They combine projected rental income, operating costs, the costs of MRP and interest charges. And of course there would be further costs not included in those figures that I've mentioned, linked to future tenant churn. Those would include maintaining environmental standards in the future, leasing incentives, rent-free periods, and simply the cost of holding vacant space. So in closing, the choice for you as members individually and collectively is as follows. If we do not proceed tonight, there is every reason to believe that we will lose the sale or face lower offers on Thames Tower. If the sale of Thames Tower does not proceed, this council will fail to deliver on its major receipts target this year. Both these outcomes will passport significant annual debt costs to West Surrey next year, the consequence of which will be to deplete public services into West Surrey and inevitably impact negatively on Spelthorne residents. Madam Chairman, thank you, and thank you members for listening. Back to you, Madam Mayor. The next step, I think, is to invite outstanding direct questions from members, and hopefully we can cover these in public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I will now invite members to put forward any questions that they have in relation to this item. As previously mentioned, I would like to take those questions that can be asked and answered in a public session first. And then if we have any questions in respect of exempt information, we'll need to go into a closed circuit. Session, sorry, I'm thinking motorbikes now. Sorry about that, minor loss of memory. Right, so I now call upon Councillor Neil to put forward a motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Were there any questions?
We'll have questions first. Sorry about that. So, who's going to ask the first question then? We've had a very interesting... You will. Okay. Councillor Sargopoulos.
Not in a good mood tonight, are you, Madam Mayor?
It's not that I'm not in a good mood. I'm afraid the heat gets to me.
It's 24 degrees. That's a lot less than what we put up with last week. So you're still not wearing the cloak.
No, I'm sorry, I won't. Unless you want me down on the floor,
and no
I'm
gown.
not wearing my cloak.
Yeah, you said that before, actually. You also said respect to be shown to officers and professional advisors in the chamber. Well, they're online, aren't they? What I would have liked to have seen was some sort of notice that we would have redress to some of these professional advisors. Yep, in the agenda. I see you sent out the supplementary agenda on the 3rd of March, okay? 3rd of August. What am I saying, 3rd of March? Yeah. What's your name, Mr. Moore? You don't frighten me. I find you actually quite threatening. I'm sitting here and I'm feeling threatened. You don't threaten me at all. And I'll do as I please on behalf of my residents out there. I will not agree to sell property just because it suits
Councillor
you.
Salagopoulos, have you got a question?
Very good at interrupting, aren't you, Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Yeah, including
this is
telling people off for talking when they're not. Yeah?
I know.
My question to Mr.
Would
Moore...
you please put your question
Yeah, I will
forward?
put my question.
Thank
My question is, Mr. Moore, how much are we paying you to work here for a day to come and tell me the kind of things that you've told me that you've just spoken about? I'm feeling very threatened here, Madam Mayor. I.e., if I don't agree to this, it's going to be my fault if Spelthorne goes to hell. That's the impression you're giving me. We had this out at the meeting, okay, the corporate meeting. We had a really good conversation, and you and your officers were told a firm no. So you're coming back and you're bombarding us with yet more information. Look at this. You've even said, I like this, why now and not delay? You've rerun what you said before. I find what you're saying actually obscene. And we can't mention the amount of money. I actually get that. I am grateful, Madam Mayor, for the officers allowing this conversation to come out in part one, because you are asking me as an elected member to say goodbye to a property just because it's a big amount and it will help the debt. I am not elected on behalf of the people in this borough just to cave in to the Labour government, because that's what you're advocating. So I'll ask you once again, what are we paying you? What are the taxpayers of Spelthorne paying you on a daily rate? Thank you.
Sorry, we can't allow that question. Would you like to? Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I think we need to get this straight. The three main questions that came out from CPRC were not, why are we selling this asset? Why are we selling Thames Tower in particular, and why are we selling it now? The key questions that came out of CPRC, and the reason it was voted down, is we want to know why it was being sold so cheaply, why this is no longer a strategic asset disposal, but a fire sale, and why did somebody, presumably the leader of the council, decide they could circumvent scrutiny through the Commercial Assets Subcommittee and take it straight to CPRC? Now, those are the questions we really need answers to.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Right to reply. This is an accusation of me personally. Under 18.5, I have right to reply.
Yes, you can reply.
I have to say categorically, that had nothing to do with me that this didn't go through to corporate asset subcommittee. So I thank you for not banding accusations around the chamber. Thank you.
In that case, I apologise to the leader. In that case, who did take that decision if it wasn't the leader of the council?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I may, I do believe that the full answer was given at CPRC why.
No, it wasn't. Can you please turn around and show us in the minutes where it says that, because it wasn't.
Councillor Bullflower.
Just to follow up, for clarity of everybody that wasn't at CPRC, who did? It would be quite handy to know. Thank you.
If I may, through you, Madam Mayor. Well, firstly, I'd like to make a point that this question has very little to do with the subject matter of this debate, and the decision has been sought from yourselves. Secondly, the reason that this particular transaction did not go to Commercial Asset Subcommittee is because the strategic disposals is a corporately significant project which sits outside the remit of CPR of that subcommittee.
Let that pass. We had this last time. At CPRC, we were basically told that this is above the heads of little people in Cask, that they just need to focus on the day-to-day management of the assets, which is exactly what members are told they're not meant to do. They're not meant to interfere in the day-to-day running of the council. So as soon as we get to something that deviates from the strategic decision that the council's made, since we deviate from that strategic decision and go down a fire sale that does not match what we've agreed, you're telling us that's got nothing to do with members of Cask. That's just completely wrong. I don't accept it. We can argue this all night long, but I'll never accept that.
Through you, Madam Mayor. With respect, Councillor Williams, I disagree. The remit of CASC is very clearly set out in the terms of reference in the Constitution, which says management of portfolio of. Yeah,
It specifically says we deal with
Please let the
disposals.
monitoring officer speak.
The objective of the committee is very clearly defined, that is the managing the investment portfolio of the council, and that explanation was given at CPRC. And in any event, to reiterate, the decision that is being sought from yourselves does not relate to where this, whether or not this matter should have gone to straight to CPRC or not. We're talking about a strategic disposal. And finally, this decision, in accordance with the Constitution, is reserved to the Council. Thank you.
Councillor Halkins.
I would like to know, for point of thing, this didn't go to CAS. We're all aware it didn't go to CAS. What the chairman of CAS turns around and thinks of this, the fact that it didn't go by him, and that is he happy that it didn't go by him? Because what from what I can see, we as CAS are supposed to read through the documents, raise points to pass on to CP&RC. We weren't given that opportunity. So now we turn around and we've missed a stage in our steps of disposing of something. I cannot work out what the hurry is to get rid of this property. That in 6 weeks, you try selling a house in 6 weeks, but 6 to 8 weeks we're turning around and going, we're getting rid of something. I don't know anyone that can sell a house in 6 weeks, so please can you explain why either first of all the leader, the chairman of the council, the deputy chief exec, the leader of CAS, why the decision was made not to go to CAS. Somebody made that decision not to do it. Thank you. I didn't ask for the monitor officer's opinion. I asked for them
No, I was going to
people.
get the interim chief executive to speak to you. Who has said the monitoring officer is the person that should be making this decision?
Through you.
So the
No, not
monitoring officer made the decision
Sorry,
not to
wrong
go to
wording.
CAS. So are you telling me the monitoring officer made the decision not to go to CAS then?
No, I'm not saying that.
I've asked who made that decision.
You asked a question and the monitoring officer is going to reply.
I asked a question of Pacific people, not the monitoring officer.
Well, maybe they don't want to respond to your question.
Don't they have voices?
Well, if they've got a voice, they'll stand up and say, won't they? Right, the monitoring officer is going to speak again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please, may I first point out that this debate, whether or not disposals have gone to CASC, did not arise when the Chamber was discussing disposal of World Business Centre or indeed Summit Centre that we've just voted on. Secondly, I am satisfied that this proposal is being considered in accordance with the Constitution. Thank you.
You still haven't answered my question. Why will you not answer the question as to who was responsible for not taking this matter to CAS? Why is the secrecy behind the decision-making?
One of them.
To reiterate, I am satisfied that this matter is being considered in accordance with the Constitution. The proposal was put forward in view of the, well, first of all, in view of the significance and in view of that it's actually part of the bigger corporately significant disposals programme, which sits outside the remit of CAS. It was only right that it does not go to that particular subcommittee. And yes, it was my decision because because it is within the under the Constitution. It's for me to consider and apply the workings of the Constitution of this Council. Thank you.
So it took you ages to turn around and say, actually, it was your decision for us not to have a choice.
Members, all I can say is that it's my job to interpret the Constitution, which I did, and it's Constitution which, again, with respect, you as members have approved for this Council. Thank you.
Can we get on and have a debate about the actual agenda item now that we've gone? I'm sorry,
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ashwell, but we couldn't finish without.
I just wanted to make a sensible suggestion.
Thank you.
Sensible to me, anyway. Obviously, you're asking this chamber to make such an important decision tonight. If you're really looking for a decision, would it not make sense to take 10 minutes out between all of the senior officers here and come back with a satisfactory answer? And then we can maybe move towards a decision. Because we're sitting here, we're hearing bits and pieces. I still don't understand what's being said. I think I'm reasonably sensible enough to understand most things. I really think it needs a break to go away and really think about it, because otherwise you're not going to get the decision, a decision that hopefully is one you want. I'm trying to be a mediator here. Spent a lot of my working life doing it, so it's up to you. I think you should really take a break and consider the concerns of people in the room if you're expecting them to vote.
Thank you for your suggestion. Would any other members like to put that motion forward? Councillor Hawkins?
What is the motion?
Would you like to actually say what the motion is? In other words,
Yes, that the officers take a break and to go and discuss and come back and answer the questions they're asked.
We need to have the actual question.
I'll refer to Councillor Williams.
Who decided to circumvent CASC in this decision in the face of very clear terms of reference that say that disposals go to CASC before they go to CPRC? So who made that decision and why?
With respect, Councillor Williams, I've just answered that question. As a monitoring officer, it's for me, in accordance with the Constitution, to apply the workings of the Constitution, and I am satisfied that this disposal does not sit with CASC for reasons I have explained many times, and unfortunately, I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Will you? Okay, well, let me read this out. Terms of reference for CASC. 2, disposals. To receive recommendations from officers as to the potential freehold disposal of investment assets. Following that, to give an initial steer on whether to investigate further on those potential disposals. And following that, and any subsequent reports from officers, to make recommendations to the Corporate Policy and Resources Committee to proceed with a particular freehold disposal. Now, there's nothing in there about the scale or the value. It applies to all of them. But you've just decided that doesn't apply. Well, we might as well just have a free-for-all, not bother with the Constitution if that's the case. You have avoided the scrutiny and the challenge that CASC is meant to provide before these things go to CPRC.
If I may, Madam Mayor. The very first paragraph in the terms of reference of Commercial Assets Subcommittee. Objective. Within the overall policies and strategies set by the Council, bearing in mind that the policy and strategy have been set by the Council to dispose, to provide leadership, decision-making and accountability for the management of the Council's investment properties. This is not management. Management is day-to-day portfolio management within the landlord and tenant meeting.
So why are disposals even mentioned in the terms of reference?
Because there may well be disposals within outside the corporately significant projects. Well, again, I'm afraid there is nothing else I can add to the explanations previously given. This sits outside the remit of CPR of CASC. Thank you.
Councillor Sexton.
It's evident we're not going to have a 10-minute break, so I think we need to start ask the questions. So, if I may, I would just like to say something. I cannot support the decision to sell this property. The level of interest
We're still on the questions. We haven't actually.
and the offers that received suggest that the market believes we are under pressure. And that is exactly what you have said tonight. We are under pressure. Tell me I'm wrong.
Who's your question directed to?
I guess whoever can answer it, please, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
To the question of pressure, and I would just like to say one thing to Councillor Saligopoulos. I didn't intend to threaten anybody in this chamber, Councillor. That isn't why I come here this evening. And if you felt that way, I apologise. Councillor Sexton, to the point of pressure, I've tried to outline the setting as I see it, the decisions that this council, this chamber has taken previously, and clearly linking back to a number of the questions this evening, there are a series of financial objectives and financial challenges that you as members know very well. I won't berate those again here. And they play out during a time of transition to the West Surrey Council. They relate back to a number of substantial historical decisions and strategies that the council previously has undertaken. The world has changed fundamentally since 2018. We've had the pandemic, a series of world events that, I won't catalogue your experienced members, you know what's gone on here. So there is a sense of pressure, timeliness, to achieve these objectives that you've debated in this chamber. And as officers, we seek to achieve always the objectives that you as a council collectively agree in this chamber. And that's what I try to represent here this evening. So the pressure comes from all those circumstances. There is a time pressure, there are financial pressures in there. And yes, there are clearly balances of risk and judgment, and that's what you're debating this evening, members. Thank you.
Would you like to ask a further question?
If that's permitted, Madam Mayor, I'd be grateful.
Yes, we're still in the question. We're not actually got to the debate yet.
Okay, thank you. It's a discussion that we all know that we need to reduce the debt. There's no ifs or buts about it, but it's how we do that. And we collectively have to ensure that the information in front of us is sufficient for us to be able to make an informed decision. It is a shame that this meeting has started in the way that it has, because the interpretation of some councillors is somewhat different to what the officers are trying to explain, and there is a miscommunication somewhere. That does not bode well in terms of where we want to end up. Now, there are various other points that I will talk about later, okay, in regards to the reasons as to why I do not agree with this sale, and that's not for now. But I'm asking and urging all officers to please consider how councillors feel at this moment in time. And let's face it, we know we're in a different place from 2018. We know that, okay? We're not daft. MRP and the way we've had to refinance has been focused on the commissioners assisting this council because of, unfortunately, the situation that we got into previously, which is why the previous government did the best value inspection and this government actually brought the commissioners in. We all know exactly where we're at, but we also have to be very, very mindful indeed that we don't give assets away. And that is what I seek to achieve in terms of best value. The under pressure element, Mr. Moore, and thank you. I'm sure you didn't mean to put everybody under pressure, but your speech very much came across, and I think it's respectful that you apologised to Councillor Salagopoulos, but there are heated moments in here, and I think we need to flatten it out and let's stay calm and let's ask the questions that we need to do, and let's make sure that we don't just say, I have no further questions to add to this, but actually understand the questions that are coming from the floor so we can move on appropriately. I'm asking everybody if we can do that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mooney, you wanted to say something? Yeah, is it still in the question? It's not. We're not in the debate yet.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, I just want to echo a tiny thing first before I ask my question that Councillor Sexton made. 2018, a lot of money was paid for this property, and you know, the figures we're being asked to consider now fall considerably short of that. And that's why I think there's a lot of strength of feeling and passion about this issue tonight. And I don't think anybody's intending to be unkind with their questions, but there's a real strength of feeling. So I have a question, Madam Mayor, if I may, about West Surrey. And it's for the Section 151 officer. So has the views of the West Surrey Shadow Authority and or its executive been sought, given that West Surrey will inherit this long-term financial consequences of a decision made in this chamber this evening? If not, why not? Thanks.
Would you like to answer that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mooney. So there is certainly at an officer level ongoing dialogue around the financial challenges which West Surrey will be facing, and indeed at the moment there is a process in terms of feeding in to the budget process for West Surrey, and that includes our medium-term financial strategy projections, and so we have made quite clear in terms of the assumptions underpinning that in terms of the impact of our asset disposal programme, and so certainly the officers understand the importance in that respect of the rationalisation programme and how that potentially will impact. We have also highlighted the risks and the uncertainties. So yes, I would say there is that understanding. Thank you.
Councillor Mooney.
Thank you to Terry, the Section 151 officer. What I understood from that is the executive of West Surrey have not been asked for their view over this decision, and I'd like to know why the executive haven't been asked for their view. You talk about dialogue with officers, which obviously is very good, but it is the elected members in that West Surrey chamber that are going to have to deal with any ramifications from this decision for the next 4.5 years. And I think at the very least, the executive's view on this should have been sought and printed in the report, even if it's part 2. That's what makes it very difficult for myself in considering this as well.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I can just
Yes.
add something to that. I mean, what Terry's explained, I think, focuses on the early stages of the financial modelling by the county for the shadow authority. What that takes from here and everywhere else is our medium-term financial strategy, the plan that we set out, that every council sets out in February as the basis of what it thinks is going to happen and change expenditure and income. And that is what's going into the system. The decision about what to do about this property is this council's. It's not anybody else's. We wouldn't, I mean, of course, the shadow authority will have interest in the outcome of all of that, but it's not their judgment. They're not the constituted council to take a view on a matter like this. That is for existing councils, and that will be true for every single financial transaction across every council until vesting day.
Would you like to add something to that?
Yes, thank you. And yes, absolutely agree with the Interim Chief Executive's comments in terms of this is actually our decision. But as part of the induction process for West Surrey councillors, there has been a briefing in terms of the challenges, financial challenges and issues we as Spelthorne are facing. So there has been that opportunity for West Surrey councillors to ask questions. Thank you.
Yes, would you like to say something else?
I just want to come back on what the Chief Executive said. My question wasn't about decision making, yeah? My question was whether the views of the West Surrey Shadow Authority have been sought, given the long-term financial consequences of this decision being made. So I accept it's down to this sovereign authority to make this decision, but my point is the views of the Shadow Executive, in my view, should be sought, because it's those councillors, and I'll just say it again, that are going to have to deal with any of these long-term ramifications from the decision we make here collectively. So that was my point, not around decision, where the views are sought and why not. We've got the answer now.
Right, do we have any more questions of the officers? Councillor Howkins, is this a question? Right.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to know, when will the council start to follow the instructions of their accountants? Their accountants, Grant Thornton, said that to do one property valuation was a high-risk thing to do, and yet we did this. Spelthorne pays for expert advice that ignores it. So why are we bothering with getting advice from Grant Thornton when they're telling us to get one set of valuations is wrong? Why don't we turn around and just do what we want? So what I want to know is, when will the council start to follow the instructions of their accountants, please?
Coralie's going to answer that one.
Councillor Howkins, the sale process and the figures that Knight Frank have given us here are not formal valuations. So whilst Knight Frank, under a separate team, a separate remit, are appointed to do our year-end valuations, this process is completely separate and the two teams are not linked. So those that have done the year-end valuations are not involved in the disposal process.
Terry would like to say anything?
Just to supplement Coralie's response, so as Coralie's touched on, the Grant Thornton, who are external auditors, their recommendations and commentary was around, as has been referenced, the process for annual valuation, which is a completely different set of issues to actually commissioning through a robust procurement process, has already been referenced, for providing advice in terms of disposal. So we're not ignoring their advice. We have followed their advice, and we, of course, did go through a procurement exercise as well for appointment of the valuers for the annual balance sheet valuations as well. Thank you.
Do you want to come back on that one?
I do. So you're telling us that we have two valuations for the properties for the annual accounts then?
We went through, sorry, yes, yeah, we went, my reference to procurement is that we went through a process to evaluate. If you have multiple valuers, then you also, there's an issue in terms of value for money, because you're then paying multiple sets of fees for that advice.
So we only had one set. So when we went to Knight Frank, did we turn around and go to any other estate agents, for want of a call? Because I think when most people buy a house, sell a house, they go to more than one estate agent.
Right. Coralie, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, thank you. It is exactly as Councillor Nichols described earlier.
Councillor Harkins, would you like to sit down where the question's been?
When we procured Knight Frank for the disposals, we went through an exercise and we had 5 tender returns that we considered. It was a public sector procurement exercise. And just for clarity, the advice that Knight Frank have given us, and this is going to sound like I'm trying to split hairs, and I'm genuinely not. The advice that Knight Frank have given us for the disposals do not constitute formal valuations. So there is a difference in terms of the approach. So the year-end valuations are formal Red Book valuations. The pricing that Knight Frank gave us in terms of the marketing are target prices. They're not formal valuations.
So within the accounts, will the figures be that for Grant Thornton or Knight Frank when we're talking about the value of the properties that we go forward and dispose of? Because if you're going with two sets of figures that are so far apart.
So the figures in the year-end accounts are the ones that Knight Frank, who are appointed, the Knight Frank team that are appointed to do the year-end valuations, have provided us. The figures that what I'm going to refer to as the Knight Frank disposal team, the ones that are working on the report that we've got this evening, will not appear in the year-end accounts, no. They're arrived at through completely different basis and considerations.
Do members actually accept that we have somebody from Frank Knight here on the Teams meeting tonight? If you wish to ask a question, which is still in part 1 and not part 2. So is there anyone which would like to ask him a question? Councillor Saligaud, please.
Yes, I have a question, Madam Mayor, for the gentleman from Knight Frank. I'm sorry, I can't recall his name.
Mr. Wild.
Mr. Wild. Mr. Wild's report, if we look at page 13, it's nothing, I'm not talking about any funds or money. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to embarrass the council. Don't worry about that. Number 12. Can you see that, Madam Mayor? Have you got your paperwork? Read it out. I'll read it out, shall I? This is what Knight Frank...
It's okay. He is online. He is listening to your questions and he will answer them if you list them.
Well, let me ask the question then.
Exactly.
If I may.
Yes.
Knight Frank important notice, page 13, Madam Mayor. Number 12, at the bottom. Oh, there he is. Good evening, sir. Yeah. In particular, but without prejudice to the above provisions, we will not be liable in respect of any inaccurate, incomplete, out of date, or otherwise erroneous element of the report which arises as a result of 1, data provided by you or your representatives, or 2, External data. Wow. I wish I worked for you. Wow. What a get out that is. How are we going to get round that, Madam Mayor? That is one hell of a disclaimer, isn't it? It's more or less saying, take all these papers, look at this, and then you get to number 12. A big disclaimer. Have we really looked at this? Have we really read this? Exactly what Knight Frank are inferring there? Because I think it's quite serious. Thank you. That's my question. That is my question is, Madam Mayor, are we really, really aware of what they mean by this? Yep.
Could we let the gentleman actually respond to your questions? Mr. Wild, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, good evening all. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. Thank you for allowing me to join. Our disclaimer is an incredibly standard practice across every report and every deal I work on and every client I have. My duty is to provide the best professional advice under the RICS, which is the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, which I'm a member, and to act in integrity and to provide a duty of care to my client. My client in this case is Spelthorne Borough Council. We do that with the means of using the information that we are given and acting in a way to achieve the best goal we can possibly achieve in the set of criteria we are given. What we try and do is buy and sell property, and in this case we are selling real estate assets to achieve the best possible price, and we have been working with the council in order to agree a strategy to do that in the best interest of the council. And not every asset will have the same protocol and ultimately will follow the same route. So in terms of our disclaimer, that disclaimer is an incredibly standard practice disclaimer that you'll find every real estate professional will have, and that is there to mitigate the fact that if we are provided with misinformation, we can only act on the information that we are given. Thank you.
May I come back, Madam Mayor?
Yes, one more question.
Yeah, thank you, sir, very much for your answer. And of course you would say that. The reason I've asked you to kind of reinforce your number 12, and as you say, standard, I call it a get-out clause actually, is that you can go ahead and advise this council, and the council is sitting here tonight, and residents are listening online, to let a property go for a criminal amount of money, less than what we paid for it. Again, Madam Mayor, I'm not mentioning the money. And guess what? It's not your problem at the end of the day because of clause 12. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, I would very much like to ask a question to Mr. Wilde of Knight Frank. Is there any possible way you could, for clarity, outline and clarify the role of Knight Frank on the asset, and to give councillors confidence in the process? If you could just give us an idea of exactly what process was gone through and the role of Knight Frank, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I'd be delighted. So we were brought involved officially as of February and have been working with the real estate team to work out the correct strategy along making sure that we are achieving the disposal strategy that has been set out. With Thames Tower in mind, as has already been noted, Thames Tower is a premier asset. It is what we would define as liquid, which means that there would be demand and we would be able to sell it with a number of parties being interested in it. And therefore, we decided to achieve best possible price. We would do a full marketing campaign. For clarity, what a full marketing campaign is in our world is Knight Frank have a database of well over 600, both in institutional and investors and agents. So when we sell something on market, we circulate investment details on the asset, which include all details that you are required around the asset, including photos, including tenancy information and everything that is required. And that goes around a very wide audience. That database is a database we have used and always update, and we use for all of our sales as our team. That then means it has done a very thorough job in terms of going around the market. we then carry out a marketing period. So that is, in Thames Towers case, was for the period of 8 weeks, which is what we would consider to be a very normal period of time for and marketing period for an asset such as this. The marketing period is dictated by the level of interest we have. We were delighted to be able to get well over 20 parties interested in the asset, which resulted in 12 inspections and then further parties coming forward as and when we called for bids. So we felt very, very comfortable that we carried out a thorough campaign. The asset was in front of all the necessary investors that we know, in our professional opinion, would consider an asset such as Thames Tower. And then we were able to carry out a competitive bids process to achieve the result and getting the chosen party. So in my professional opinion, we carried out a very, very thorough campaign and could sit here and suggest that we did the job that was asked of us. And I would also clarify, in my professional opinion, that does not constitute a fire sale. That constitutes a methodical, full marketing campaign that would be very consistent with a number of the sales that we carry out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Buck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to refer to the Knight Frank important note, section 8, where it's clearly said that Knight Frank make no representation or warranty about the accuracy and fitness of any particular purpose of the report they provide, or that the use of the report will achieve any particular result to us. Now, as a council, when you receive such a report, can you tell me how do you process this report when you see something like that, any report? Why an independent assurance has not been requested? If there is a reason, what is the reason? And if it hasn't been requested, why was it not requested? Thank you.
Would you like to respond to that, Mr. Wilde?
Forgive me, I'm not entirely sure what the direct question to Knight Frank in that was. If you could please clarify.
Councillor Buck, was that a question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. The question, I don't think, is for Knight Frank to reply. The question is for this council to reply, because Knight Frank has provided a report. They are an independent private organization being procured to do a work for this council. Now, where is the input of the council? You receive a report like that from your property consultant or agent. Now, the report clearly says that they cannot guarantee the accuracy of whatever they say. I don't know how much we paid them. But now, when you receive something like that,
Councillor Buck,
have you...
This was a question you were asking Frank Knight, and you've actually started talking about another question.
Yeah, but
So-
this question is related to,
Yeah,
to
but
Frank
do you
Knight.
have a question
Yeah,
for the gentleman at Frank Knight? Knight Frank, sorry. We'll have a break in a minute. Do you
All right,
have a
okay,
question?
all right. Let me jump on the question. If you want me to ask a question to the gentleman.
No, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
asking you if you have a question for him.
That's the question.
If you don't have a question for him,
Yeah.
then we need to see if there's anybody else that would like to ask this gentleman a question.
Exactly, that's what the question. For the council, you have to answer why this clause 8 in the important notice, have you read it first? And how did you assimilate that? Have you discussed it? Was this have you discussed with members? And also, what was your reaction after reading this clause? Did that trigger let's have another evaluation, because we cannot rely on that? How can you bring this to members today to vote?
Coralie?
Councillor Buck, Henry's already explained that he's a member of the RICS. I'm a fellow of the RICS, so I'm also suitably qualified. So we're not just relying on Knight Frank's advice without any internal expertise in this area. Myself and my whole team that deal with these assets are qualified chartered surveyors with significant experience. We deal with property consultants on a regular basis. We understand, exactly as Henry set out earlier, what the standard T's and C's of any appointment are. So yes, of course, we review them, we make sure they're standard, and we ask for our legal colleagues' input on that as well before we sign anything. Coming back to your point about getting independent validation in terms of pricing and things like that, I've said before at a number of meetings, the best interpretation, and this is RICS guidance if you want to check it out, in terms of the market value of an asset is based on a willing purchaser and a willing seller. That's what we've got and we achieve through the marketing process. So we can go and get an external Red Book valuation, but it is not as credible as a marketing process. A Red Book valuation is a qualified person's view of the market value based on a certain set of circumstances based on other transactions, which obviously have what we call comparable evidence, which the value will use to apply to the specific asset. But it is not as good and it does not meet the RICS definition of what market value is. So that is the reason we do not need to go out and get independent verification of the pricing that we've recommended within this report. Henry's already explained to you the marketing process, the number of offers, and I hope that that demonstrates that the property has had really good exposure and the level of interest received from those determines what somebody is prepared to pay, and that is the market value. Thank you.
Councillor Bullflower.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we have a comfort break, please, for 10 minutes?
I was going to suggest that at the end of this questions for the officers, etc., that we have that break. Now, has anybody else got any other questions to the people here, the officers? Councillor Buck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I've just listened to this reply. It's a reply, but it doesn't reply to the question that I've asked. Why independent valuation was not important? Because the council has a duty for best value, to obtain the best value when we sell any property. This is a statutory duty. I think you know that very well. And absence of a secondary opinion is not good governance. This is my point I made earlier. Now I have a second question about this report for the gentleman before we break. Right, there's contradiction in the report. You say that in your report, Reading is one of the strongest office market in the southeast, right? You also say that demand is very strong, right? Good. You tell us that grade A vacancy is exceptionally low. You tell us further in your report that rent are expected to increase. You also say that investor demand remain attractive. And I also read in the report that you recommended us to sell this property. So my question is, if the long-term outlook is that positive based on your report, why do you recommend the council to sell this property at the specific price? This doesn't make sense.
Thank you. My first response to that is just setting very quickly the context of the wider market, because I think it's important. It's been referenced before that we're not in the market of 2018. I think it's worth just stressing how the market challenges from particularly 2020 beyond have been felt in the southeast market, particularly on the investment side. Volumes are 55% below their peaks, and we continue to see that those volumes trending at that sort of level, or broadly half of the long-term 10-year average. I raise that point because it points that whilst, yes, on an occupational side, we are seeing some positive trends in the Reading market, we still have a wider macroeconomic challenges for the investment market in the southeast and in the UK generally. Those are driven by a large number of factors that include the likes of COVID and the changing world of the office dynamic, rising interest rates that we all know in the room, cost inflation, and also the ESG challenges and generally the risk of obsolescence in offices more than any other sector. Those are all relatively new challenges within the last 5 years, and those are the factors that are driving these values and really affecting both investor appetite, but also more importantly, pricing. The reason that volumes have been so low for the last number of years are that the Red Book valuations and the asset pricing have not got anywhere near where the investor demand is in the market, and therefore there haven't been transactions. What we are now witnessing is that actually investor appetite for offices is returning, but largely due to valuations have declined in that period of time to reach a point where investor demand is now reaching valuations, and that or broadly valuations, and that means that we then have a market again. And that is what the report is suggesting, is that we are reaching a point at which that market is coming back, and that the Reading market, yes, it is one of the largest Southeast office markets, and it is set to continue. With Thames Tower, however, it's worth noting there is still a relatively short unexpired lease term. You've got tenants on shorter leases with the risk of potential vacancy. You have an existing vacant floor that you are having to pay void costs on. And also you have a building that was extensively refurbished 10 years ago. Increasingly with the demands of tenants and their ESG criteria, they are now demanding greater credentials and therefore significant landlord capital expenditure required in order to continue to reach the demands that of the occupiers in the market. So whilst I am suggesting that Reading still continues to be a good, strong market, it certainly is not without its challenges, and the risk of not taking this offer and selling Thames Tower today is that some tenants might leave. You might have the risk of tenants demanding further ESG criteria that mean there's further capital required from the council in order to keep the asset in the level that it is required that the occupiers demand, and in order to see the rental growth that we would all like to see. Thank you.
Corey?
I just want to remind the Chamber here, when we instructed Knight Frank, we didn't actually ask them whether out of our investment portfolio what we should sell and what we should retain. The instructions to Knight Frank were, we need to sell the assets within our commercial portfolio, our investment portfolio. That was a decision that's already been discussed this evening, was taken by this Chamber in December in terms of asset rationalisation. What we asked Knight Frank to do is, with those assets, advise us and work with us on the strategy of the order that we should dispose of them over a 2 or 3 year programme. So Knight Frank were never asked to advise about whether we should sell this asset or whether we should keep it. They were asked to advise us on the best way to sell it and the timescales to sell it. So I don't think there can be any responsibility on Knight Frank's part about the decision to sell this asset. It's the pricing, it's the strategy and everything like that that Knight Frank have helped us with. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson?
Yes, sorry, this is a question for Mr. Wilde. Could you please just expand a little bit on your professional opinion of the age of the building and what impact that is having on what we've just discussed as well? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The demands of offices and what tenants demand from offices is changing very, very rapidly. And not just that, but also from onward investors and owners of real estate. What I mean by that is to own an absolute prime real estate asset today, an office asset, it is the expectation if you were developing an asset today that you would not have any gas-fired central heating, it would be all electric, and it would hit a number of criteria in terms of carbon offsetting and also various ESG credentials that are required. Now, the reality is, due to the market conditions I've just outlined, fewer assets, certainly outside London, have been developed in recent years. But we know from the nature of Station Hill, the asset next door, that the assets that are being built to those sort of standards and criteria. Thames Tower is a fantastic asset. Thames Tower is also it was a renovated building with 4 new floors built over 10 years ago, and it is gas-fired. What I mean by that is it is still a very good building, but to be credible as a top premier office building into the next cycle and beyond, there will be significant capital required in order to achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sexton?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wild. Just one quick question, and I know we don't have a magic wand, but if we were to defer selling this property for 1 to 3 years, what is the likelihood with the new Prime Minister in place now, with many, whether some like it or not in this chamber, quite pleased that we have a new Prime Minister in terms of what people feel that the economic growth in this country and indeed those going back to work looks like? Very hard, I know, to ask you this question, and I know you don't have a magic wand, as I said, but just kind of a feeling from your insights of where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to tackle as much as I can of that question. And what I mean by that is clearly it's incredibly hard to crystal ball gaze, and you're all better placed on the politics than me to comment. What I would say is the larger macro geopolitical factors are the bigger factor at play, because the UK, Reading, the UK, the office market I deal with, we look at on a global scale, not just in the UK context. The UK continues to be a very transparent and attractive market for a lot of overseas capital partners to invest in. That's why we have such good capital inflows across all sectors, obviously not just office and not just in the geography of London, but around the whole of the UK. There are significant challenges that we have, the war in Iran being one, and that leads on to inflation and then debt pricing and our interest rate environment, and that leads directly to commercial real estate and the pricing of commercial real estate. For context, when you acquired Thames Tower, you acquired it in an interest rate environment where LIBOR, where base rates were around 0.5%. Today they're at 4.25%. So that is a significant swing in just interest rates and therefore the lending capacity on real estate, which does directly impact pricing. What is going to happen going forward, it's very hard to predict, but we do want some a period of stability, shall we say. Thank you.
Councillor Lee, I think you might be the last question.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Mr. Wild, I just had one question, if I may. The latest officers' report made comment that if this council was to reject the offer, it would put into question our credibility as a seller. Obviously, you haven't achieved the market price or the guide price. So would it not be normal if we weren't the council and I was a commercial client, would it not be normal for me to reject that offer and maybe go out to the market when we could achieve that guide price? Thank you.
The guide price itself is a price that we had already agreed and discussed with the real estate team. The guide price is strategically set at a level that we had aspirations to achieve. That said, it was always dictated and we had always referenced in our reports that we had anticipated we would likely not reach the quoted price. And that's what I mean, the quoted price when we went to market, mainly because the optics of buying any office in the market, both in the UK and across London as well, very few investors are paying quoting price. And that is just the optics of where we are. And that brings in some of the more challenging points that I've mentioned around where we are in the market generally. That said, that was all factored into the strategy that we had agreed with the real estate team. So what I would say is the council credibility, every owner of real estate has a duty, has the ability to accept or not accept. That's their gift. They own the asset. What I would say is that in the case of Thames Tower, we can categorically say, in my professional opinion, we have done a very, very thorough campaign. I do not believe that there are any other investors out there that would have paid considerably ahead of where we are. And we can prove that through the process that we ran. If that, it is then the council's gift to decide what they do with that information. It's not for me to advise whether or not they accept it or not. That's not my job. My job is to present the optionality and get the best possible price. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, would you like to come back?
If I may, Madam Mayor, Thank you very much, Mr. Wild, for your explanation. I think Councillor Sexton may have asked a similar question, but maybe didn't get the answer. If you were advising us of what the outlook for Reading will be, maybe in the next 12 months, what sort of growth or decline would you be expecting in the commercial space? Thank you.
The hope is that with political stability, with a ceasefire in the Middle East, and therefore inflationary pressures reducing and interest rates potentially coming down, if all of that was to materialize, then we're in a world where, yes, perhaps we should feel in a more solid economic environment, and that could have a knock-on impact and positive impact on pricing for real estate. But it is absolutely the case that the counter is also true. We could also say that the war in Iran escalates. We could also say that inflation jumps up, interest rates move out, and then we're sitting here in 12 months' time in a far worse place. That also, you have a tenancy situation in your asset that some of those tenants could vacate or could choose to tell you that they're going to vacate in the next 12 months. That would then leave a further void in that asset. So as with every client I have and every asset we try and dispose, there are always risks and rewards, and it's about using our professional opinion to try and get the best price at the best suitable time for our client. And that's what we believe we've done in the case of Thames Tower. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson.
This is a question for Terry, not for you, Henry. Just very quickly, if this does not bring us to straying into part 2, is there any way you could clarify for us the other factor in the whole situation, and that is the MRP that is related to this particular asset and the impact that it will have on this particular asset, please?
In fact, my colleague has already previously commented on this, so that is not straying into part 2. So, and this is one of the key drivers. So, by generating a capital receipt, that then creates a credit which then feeds into the calculation for the following year's minimum revenue provision. And so if you generate a significant capital receipt, then it reduces your minimum revenue provision for the following year from the 1st of April. And we've made reference to the fact that the asset rationalisation programme for 26-27, if we achieve that, that will deliver a 16 million reduction in the minimum revenue provision for 27-28 if we complete those sales by the 31st of March 27. And clearly that is a significant figure. And we've already heard earlier that how insignificant this particular site is as part of that programme. So if we don't, as has already been commented, if we don't progress this sale and ensure that we get it across the line by the 31st of March, then the chances of us meeting that overall target is going to be significantly reduced, and therefore that minimum revenue provision is likely to be lower, and that then has an ongoing impact for 27-28 for West Surrey Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sexton, this is going to be the last question before we have a break, and then we'll come back after the break and start the debate. So, Councillor Sexton.
Thank you. I'll come back on MRP in a minute, Terry, but I'd just like to ask Mr Wilder a quick question, if I may. I have no idea what the refurbishing costs would be to bring this up to a Grade A building. I believe we're at a Grade B building, and to bring it up to a Grade A building. If it was a Grade A, gosh, I got my teeth in, Grade A building, the realisation of this asset would be significantly more? Yes or no? That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to tell me how much more or anything, because I appreciate that this is all in the public domain. And of course, we need to ascertain what the cost of refurbishing would be. But I would just like to understand from your perspective where we would be on that without going into figures. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We would typically expect if an asset is newly developed and therefore of the highest specification and demanding the highest rates in that market, that will demand the highest price. Thames Tower is not that. It is still a prime building. We would still classify it as a grade A, which I appreciate sounds slightly somewhat counterintuitive to what I'm explaining, but it is still a fantastic asset. It just isn't at the top bracket of a new building that for the likes of like Station Hill, which is an asset right next door to Thames Tower, which has been far more newly built and is demanding rents 10, 15 pounds ahead of Thames Tower. So by the very nature that the yield that you would pay on a better asset would be keener and the rents would be higher, then yes, it would achieve a better price.
Thank you very much. And if I may to Terry, I have a concern on MRP in terms of West Surrey, because obviously the way that we've calculated MRP has been very much scrutinised by our auditors, and the rest of West Surrey's MRPs, it's not necessarily at the same equivalent of how we have realised what we have to do in terms of getting our house in order. And it would be fair to say, would it not, that we are not consistent across West Surrey in terms of understanding the rest of the authorities within the 6 of the West Surrey, that they are on the same calculation as the MRP that we have been asked to move to. Thank you.
Terry, can you help us with that one?
Yes, Councillor Sexton's correct. There isn't, at the moment, there's not consistency, and that has been highlighted as part of the process of putting together the budget for West Surrey. That is an issue which needs to be looked at, because ultimately West Surrey, as a single authority, will need a single policy, and of course it will have a single set of auditors. And but what I would say is that we have had the most recent review and refresh of our MRP, and as you know, that involved conversations and dialogue with the department, Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government, which sets the guidance, with the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, with our external auditors. So it's not for me to comment on others' policies, but the point I make is that as you say, our policy is the one which has been subject to the most recent scrutiny.
Right, I'm going to suggest now that we have a break, because I think we've been here for an hour and 45 minutes, and we've had ample opportunity to ask questions of the officers. I think everyone would agree with that. When we come back at 9 o'clock, I'm giving you a quarter of an hour. When we come back at 9 o'clock, we will start the debate. Okay, and the council will be going through until we have a decision. Thank you. Right, councillors, can you take your seats, please? Have we got everyone back that went for their break? Is there anyone missing? Okay. Everybody's here? Yes? Great. Yes?
Can I make a suggestion for further meetings that the coffee machine is working? And that there's turnaround and milk. You turn around once to see at quarter to 7, 6:30, stay here till 10:30, and you can't even give us a decent cup of coffee.
Okay, we will try and do our best. Well, I went and got the milk. I don't know what you're moaning about. Okay, moving on. Are we all ready for the next part? Yes? Okay. Right. So, we've had the questions, we've had the answers. We're now going to go to Councillor Neil to put forward a motion. Thank you.
Committee is asked to, Council is asked to, 1, approves the disposal price set out on the terms in this report, and 2, delegate authority to the Chief Finance Officer and Group Head of Assets in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair of Corporate Policy and Resources Committee to agree minor variations to the heads of terms and adjustments to the sale price. And 3, delegate authority to Group Head of Corporate Governance to enter into a transfer to complete the disposal and any ancillary legal documentation required in relation to the proposed disposal.
Is that seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Bateson, do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Neil, do you wish to speak in support of your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This vote is a defining moment in the legacy of Spelthorne Borough Council. Whether or not we sell Thames Tower is the biggest decision this council has faced since elections in 2023. And the choice faced by councillors this evening is this: will we accept the offer made based on well-researched data and information, a thoroughly marketed and expertly brokered offer, or will we gamble for another offer? Roll the dice, choose red or black, keep our fingers crossed we beat the odds. You can wish for a buyer who didn't know we were selling, or you can pray for a buyer who wants to pay more, or you can hope that playing hardball with the buyer we have might give a better result. This council has been subject to central government intervention for some time. It was a Conservative minister that first sent the best value inspectors in. It's been a Labour minister that has overseen most of the work of the commissioners, and the council itself has been led by independent and Liberal Democrat councillors. This is not a partisan matter, but it will have the biggest impact of any decision this council has made since 2023. We've all shared the experience of seeing the council's financial situation worsen, and you no doubt have views on what might or could have been done better. But tonight is not the time to go over those decisions and actions again. Tonight we must act collectively and decisively. Tonight, as always in this chamber, we will make decisions that have a direct impact on the residents who put their faith in us, and they will be the ones to feel the consequences of this decision. Doubts and concerns were raised at Corporate Policy and Resources Committee last week. I recognise those, and I acknowledge that members of the committee did not feel able to recommend this disposal for a variety of persuasive and logical reasons. This is how scrutiny is applied, and I thank the committee for their views. I thank Gordon and the officers for coordinating such a detailed and informative briefing to answer those concerns so thoroughly. We've also had the opportunity to ask technical questions this evening, and following that, I ask you to please look again at this proposal. Few things are ever perfect, we know that, but this report is built on solid ground and takes us one step further forward on our journey to rebuild this council. Look at what is at stake. This is the most valuable building we own, and consequently, it will leave the biggest debt on the books, and it will leave the biggest interest repayment to be made. Therefore, if ownership of this property is retained, public services will have to be cut to make those repayments. Potentially, all discretionary services in Spelthorne could be lost. To gamble with that as the stake at this stage of our progress cannot be the right decision for our residents. I truly believe this, and I'm here to fight to maintain public services with the proceeds of this sale. This is the difficult decision we have to take tonight. Now is the time for reason and for sensible attitudes. Now is the time to put faith in the experts we have employed. Now is the time to heed the professional advice we have commissioned. Now is the time to listen to those who are here to help us claw our way out of the debt problem we inherited. Now is the time for putting public services above the vagaries of the property market. I request a named vote, Madam Mayor. The public are watching, and I believe they will want to know who played fast and loose with an £80 million publicly owned asset. To be 100% clear, a vote to accept the offer is a vote for this motion. I will be voting for it, and I fear for the future of Spelthorne if this chamber does not vote for it with me. Thank you.
Thank you. We take note of the fact that you want a named vote. Now, is that seconded? The named vote I'm talking about. Okay, thank you. Right. Now, Councillor Sally Goflis, you'd like to start.
Thank you. Why not? Well, it's fresh in my mind. Councillor Neil, you kept saying now is the time. It kind of reminded me of some theatrical performance. And may I say to you, don't give up the day job. You should be on the stage, really, sweeping up. I've written down what you were saying, and obviously you put some thought into it, or did you get AI to do it for you? A defining moment, you said, in the council's history, the biggest legacy since 2023. I can't remember how many years, but it's nearly 100 years that this council's been going. I could be wrong, I should have done a bit more research, so you're talking 3 years ago, you know, please. And I'm not a gambler, okay? And I'm definitely not going to vote to appease the Liberals, because you have stood there proposing your motion, leader, blaming the Labour government. Yeah, that's what you're doing. And actually, before that, you used to blame us, the Conservatives. Now you're scrambling around trying to blame Labour. You are the leader. Your group is the ruling group, okay? And from what I can tell tonight, if people really, really feel the way we feel, put the politics aside, I really don't see you getting the support. I really don't. You're making a big mistake. You really are. Thames Tower, okay, and you gave away you gave it away. I don't think you've given enough thought. I mean, really, your members are not even standing up and speaking. You've whipped them to vote for this. We know that. Give them a really good whipping. So I'm not going to be part of a council that is giving away a property for a pittance, because that's what it is. You stood there and tried to persuade me. And the other thing, another threat came down, Madam Mayor, another threat. You know, council services being cut if we don't agree to sell this. Do something imaginative, yeah? Do something else. And you're saying this is a valuable building we own. We don't own it. I don't own it, you don't own it, neither do the officers in the council, Madam Mayor. The people out there own it. It's their hard-earned taxes that paid for it. So how dare you stand up and threaten me with council cuts unless I agree to giving away a piece of property, land in Reading at a pittance. Shame on you. I think it's a bloody disgrace. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Right, has anybody else got anything to say? Councillor Williams.
It's just a question. At some point, are we going to go into part 2, or are we happy to carry on in part 1?
At the moment, we're still in part 1, but if you start talking about figures, we will have to go into part 2. So if everybody could ask questions that they want to in part 1, I'm quite happy to go into part 2. So if you want to go into part two, would someone put forward a motion for that? Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Okay. We will now need to move into part two to deal with the exempt questions. As we will be discussing private information, we will need to formally agree that under section 100, that's brackets A, of the Local Government Act of 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting during the remaining part of the discussion or debate on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information under the relevant paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act. And Councillor Bortflower is proposing that, and the seconder was Councillor Williams. Thank you very much. Right, we're back in part one, so, okay. We're summing up? Okay. We need to clarify the decision then. So do I read out what we just had? If you've got a piece of paper or something. Can someone actually, Councillor Bortfire, can you actually read out the...
That's what I was going to ask. If
Or-
if what we've just done will appear in part one,
This is,
probably
this
should
is,
have done.
we are now back in part one.
Shall I read that again?
Yes, please.
Okay, one second, sorry, no, it's got find it. Here we are. Okay, I move that this item be deferred until the views of the West Surrey Shadow Authority Executive have been sought and reported back to this council, given that the new authority will inherit the financial consequence of the disposal. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is that seconded?
It is, Madam Mayor. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Mooney, right, okay.
Carried away.
And now we need to have the vote again. Sorry about this, but we have to do it properly. So, with all the people for the motion?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, we had a recorded vote, did we not?
Yeah, if we have another recorded vote, you won't get to 10 o'clock. You have to do it by a show of hands, otherwise we'll
Okay.
run out of time.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so everybody that would like this, this motion for, would you please put your hands up and it will be counted. And against, would you please put your hands up? It's the same. Monitoring officer will read out the result.
There was 20 votes for, 12 votes against, so therefore the motion is carried. Thank you.
Right, so this concludes the business for this meeting. I would like